Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Police launch major operation in Waterloo, St. Catherine after Tuesday's triple murder. Transport Minister laments the challenges plaguing the JUTC amidst the new school year. And in sports, Reggae Boys prepare for a clash versus Honduras on Friday. I'm Kelisha Williams and here are the details. We begin the news with a developing story. One of the men listed as a person of interest in the murder of a family of 3 in Waterloo, Spanish Town, St. Catherine, Tuesday morning was shot and killed during a joint police-military operation in the area this morning. The deceased has been identified only as Gaza Man. 3 other men were arrested while 2 guns were also found. The police provided the update at a press briefing this morning.
They are satisfied that they're on the right path in terms of the leads that they are following. They suspect, based on what they know, that there are other individuals that they are looking for. There's still some other persons that are on the list of names that were sent out as persons of interest. They're still looking for Demar Williams, that goes by the name Kiki or Kai Kai. They are looking for Buffy. They are also looking for Richie, and these are all aliases because their true names are not yet ascertained by the investigators. They are looking for Othniel Loban, who goes by the name Tickman.
And of course, we'll have more details on that story in primetime news at 7. Transport Minister Darrell Vaz is bemoaning the plethora of problems plaguing the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC, as the company looks to roll out more buses for the new school year. At today's post-cabinet press briefing, Mr. Vaz said the JUTC loses hundreds of millions of dollars each year due to diesel fuel theft and uncollected fares. We have more in this report. On Tuesday, the shocking news that vandals threw a stone into one of the new JUTC buses in Portmore, St. Catherine, shattering one of the windows. It was one of 236 buses rolled out for back to school on Monday, although the original plan was for 300. But some of the buses developed mechanical problems among other issues. While Transport Minister Darrell Vaz did not refer to Monday's vandalism, it appears it has added to a plethora of problems plaguing the bus company.
We have 70 buses that are aged between 12 and 14 years old. Those buses were rehabilitated for the back to school. And unfortunately, they are not standing up or holding up as we expected. So the rehabilitated buses are the ones that are coming back in pretty much as soon as they go out.
Mr. Vaz said the government is hoping to get 30 of the 70 older buses back on the road as soon as possible. He explained that the burden of defective buses is not the biggest issue facing the JUTC, pointing to the high incidence of diesel fuel theft and uncollected fares.
It's not leakage from the bus. It's not the tank that's leaking. It is that the diesel oil is being rerouted to other areas outside of the JUTC. And secondly, there is a pilot project that is starting anytime now for JUTC to go cashless.
Meanwhile, Mr. Vaz fired back at the opposition spokesperson for Transport, Michael Phillips, who questioned the number of buses being rolled out by the government. Mr. Phillips had indicated that only 180 buses were deployed by the company for the new school year.
If you do a simple mathematical calculation, if we had 140 buses that was agreed at our lowest a few months ago that we were rolling out, and we got 50 new buses, that would take it to 190 buses. And that's without the rehabilitated buses and other buses that required spare parts, etc. So I want to caution and ask, as I have said before, to leave the politics out of the transport sector.
To news now in education. Education Minister Favour Williams says more students have registered for the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate CSEC examinations post-pandemic. Mrs. Williams was speaking earlier at today's post-cabinet press briefing at Jamaica House. She said it is a positive look for the education sector.
We are better in 2023 than where we were in 2019 post-pandemic in terms of the number of students registering for the CSEC, and that is a very good trend. It's particularly evident this year versus last year, but the better comparison as well is to look at where we are now versus where we were before the pandemic. Obviously, you see the dip, but we're seeing the recovery, and for that we are very thankful.
The minister also said the number of male and female students going on to grade 11 from 2019 to 2023 has remained steady.
If you look at the total, what you should take away from this chart is that where we are in 2023, we have, we're slightly higher than where we were in 2019. And we've chosen to give this 5-year look at the CSEC exam because it's a perfect time to take a look at pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, to see where we were rather than just comparing with last year.
And still on education, the Jamaica Teachers Association is giving its take on the start of the new academic year. We caught up with JTA President Leighton Johnson in St. James yesterday. We have more in this report.
The Jamaica Teachers Association president says the JTA continues to assess the impact of the absence of teachers in critical subject areas, including science, English language, technical and vocational studies.
There is a shortage of language teachers. There are a shortage of teachers in the technical and vocational areas. We are still assessing the impact of this or how chronic this situation is. But what I can indicate is that there are schools right across Jamaica that started yesterday with vacancies unfilled.
Leighton Johnson says the JTA's checks reveal that some schools have not been given the allotted furniture from the Ministry of Education. However, those should be dispatched soon.
Up to last week, the report that we received was that there are schools that had not yet received the allotted furniture from the Ministry of Education. The ministry has indicated that they are in the process of dispatching. This process started from mid-August. These are just some of the challenges that schools are confronted with at the start of the school year.
However, due to infrastructural challenges, some schools have been unable to accommodate students. It's why Mr. Johnson is urging the ministry to move quickly to modernize schools to meet the demands of the 21st century.
The infrastructure that our teachers and students have to work with is infrastructure that needs immediate upgrading. We are operating in a 21st century, and of course right across the board you want to hear our schools being modernized. We want our schools to be modernized, and once our schools are modernized, it requires up-to-date infrastructure.
Krista Campbell.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more local stories. Welcome back to the Midday News, and thanks for staying with us. The owner of a tire shop in Boscobel, St. Mary, is counting his losses this afternoon after a fire destroyed the building. Reports are that about 10:30 last night, residents saw flames coming from a section of the shop and alerted the fire department. However, when they arrived, the entire building was engulfed. Hundreds of tires, batteries, as well as equipment amounting to millions were destroyed in the blaze. An investigation has been launched to determine the cause of the fire. Minority leader at the St. Anne Municipal Corporation and counsel for the Borough Bridge Division, Winston Brown, is calling for an investigation into the use of monies allocated to the St. Anne Infirmary. It comes following a tour of the infirmary, which was cut short by local government minister Desmond McKenzie due to the poor state of the facility.
If allocation was granted to maintain the infirmary, what had happened to it? I want to know that, because I know several times I went to meeting and I heard how much money is being spent at the infirmary, and when the minister went, there's nothing to show.
Councillor Brown says under the previous PNP administration, the infirmary was deemed the best in the parish. It's why he says he will be requesting a breakdown of how the money is spent at the next monthly meeting.
Done an investigation last week, and sometimes months pass, months upon months, and they have not received not even a single grain of rice. How do we expect them to be alive? How do we have to be responsible for the poor people what we serve?
It's now time for the Business Minute.
Jamaica spent more money on the import of consumer goods for the first 4 months of the year. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, says $608.7 million US dollars, or 9.6% more, was spent on consumer goods than the same period in 2022. All subcategories increased except non-durable goods, which declined by 0.30%. Money spent to import food, including beverages mainly for household consumption, was 11.7% more at $373.6 million US dollars. Statin says this was primarily due to higher imports of beverages as well as sugars, sugar preparations, and honey. Overseas, Goldman Sachs has lowered its expectation of a recession in the United States. The firm says there is now a 15% likelihood of a recession in the U.S. in the next 12 months. That's down from a 20% forecast given earlier. Fairly positive inflation and labor market data led to the cut. The investment bank said it expected re-acceleration in real disposable income next year on the back of continued solid job growth and rising wages. U.S. consumer spending accelerated in July, but a slowing inflation strengthened expectations that the Federal Reserve would keep interest rates unchanged in its policy meeting this month. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Krista Campbell.
We now go to the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Haiti will benefit from a $125 million United Nations Central Emergency Response Fund. It was established to support underfunded humanitarian operations in 14 countries across Africa, Asia, the Americas, and the Middle East. UN Relief Chief Martin Griffiths announced that Haiti will receive an allocation of $8 million from the fund. The country has been grappling with a social and economical crisis, which had led to wide-scale violence and hardship. On the international scene, at least 2 people have died in Greece due to severe flooding. The body of a woman in her 80s was recovered in the region of Magnesia. A man died on Tuesday after being hit by a collapsing wall near the port city of Volos. 3 people are missing in central Greece. Parts of Volos and its surrounding areas are also without electricity, and roads have collapsed due to the floods in nearby Pelion. Traffic circulation has also been banned in a few towns. The fire service received over 1,000 calls for assistance due to the floods. And those were the top regional and international news stories. I'm Jamila Maitland.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's Health Report.
In this evening's health report, we'll look at extreme heat and pregnant women.
Particularly dehydration. And the dehydration can be so significant that it can cause electrolyte abnormalities like sodium, potassium, and chloride. And in doing so, it can affect the uterus, making it more irritable. So they tend to get more Braxton Hicks when they're dehydrated. They tend to have more contractions that start off mild and then slowly build up if the dehydration continues.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Avoid overexerting yourself. Use water to cool down. Protect your skin and know the signs of heat exhaustion and heat stroke.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report. Jordan Ford is here.